Well, this is Millie Rust. She's from Gearbox Studio. She's also a former UT student, so give it up for Millie. You do not.
Okay, that's okay. I can just stay at the podium.
If you want, I can put this down if you need it up.
That's fine. Hey, everybody. Welcome to my talk. Thank you guys so much for coming here. Today, I will be presenting The Cake is a Lie, 5 video game marketing myths and their debunking. To give you guys a little bit of insight about where I'm coming from and where I learned all this stuff, I am a CRM, product marketing, and data geek. Spreadsheets are my best friend. I love them, and you should learn to love them too. I have 6 years of gaming experience across several studios, basically any platform I've worked on, from Switch to mobile. I've also had the chance to work on MMOs and live service games, as well as indies and some of those double and close to AAA games. And I'm a UT Austin ad grad, so hook 'em, everybody. I graduated in 2018 from the Moody College of Communications with a BS in advertising, which sometimes I call a BS in BS, which makes me great at presentations like this. So here are a few studios where I've worked. I got my start at Dimensional Inc., working at DC Universe Online as an intern. Did come back to them recently, but not so recently. I was affected by the layoffs. I worked at King's Isle Entertainment, working on Wizard 101 and Pirate 101, as well as some mobile games. At Aspire, I got to help out with indie games like Light Matter, and really what we worked on mostly was bringing old games to new consoles. So games like Star Wars Episode 1 Racer and Stubbs the Zombie, which is a game about a farting zombie that takes over a town. That was easily the most fun marketing campaign I've ever worked on. Please ask me about it if you have the time. And at Gearbox Publishing, I'm currently the CRM manager. I help oversee our Shift database, which some of you guys might recognize from the Borderlands franchise. And I do basically all of the email marketing for our publishing titles, including games like Relic Hunters Legends and the upcoming Homeworld 3, which you should all be very excited about, even if you hate RTS, because this is going to be amazing. So here's the game plan. And this is actually a gameplay loop for this presentation. So first, I'm going to tell you a myth. Then I'm going to debunk it. Then I'm going to give you guys cheat codes that you can use to level up your marketing, especially compared to folks who actually still believe those outdated myths. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of time for questions and answers after each myth, because I don't just want to stand here and talk at you guys, even though I love the sound of my own voice. I want to hear from you guys, and I don't just want everybody to have to hold questions until the end. So before we start, how many of you think you're marketers? Hey, we got one, two. We got two. All right. How many of you guys are developing a game? Okay, all right. How many of you guys want to make money off of your game? Yeah, okay, all right, cool. You're all marketers, you just don't realize it yet. So are you guys ready? Let's do this. So myth number 1 is that marketing starts when you have something to show off. A lot of people wait for something big and shiny to share. And the truth is that marketing actually starts when game dev does, if not before. A lot of people create amazing games that the market just doesn't have space for. Market and competitive analysis is marketing, and it is a huge, huge part of game development. You can create the most beautiful, perfect, wonderful game, but if it's an oversaturated genre, or if there's just not an audience for it, it's not going to make you money. So build it out of a labor of love, but not necessarily a labor of dollars. I'm looking at side-scrolling 2D platformers. I'm really talking to anybody who's developing those. Sorry. And marketing is actually involved in building tools. Now, me as a marketer, I've never built a tool in my life. I pretty much just code in SQL. Everything else scares me. There are a lot of numbers and pound signs. But production schedules should include tools for screenshot and trailer capture. A lot of times games they'll build the game and then all of a sudden it's time to show it off. And there's not really a good way to get screenshots without UI. That's a huge thing to be able to have in trailers, right? And those are tools that need to be built while you're in production. And then I want to call out a game called Tiny Glade, which has not come out yet. But it might be a little bit hard to see because it's a little bit small. Tiny Glade, all right. But that is a purely gray boxed image from a procedural building tool that they created. This was not even intended to be a game. They shared it on Twitter, they got 14,000 likes, and now it is going to be a game that has pretty substantial traffic on social media across all of their platforms. So even a gray box can make an impact if you've got something cool to show off. And somebody asked about tools earlier. You're marketing. Congratulations. So here are those cheat codes. First and foremost, before you create anything, barring, having done a game jam, do a SWOT analysis. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What this will do is help you understand what you can deliver. Strengths and weaknesses are focused on you and your team. And then opportunities and threats are that market analysis piece, right? Are there 300 games where you are trying to publish? Are there 3,000 games where you're trying to publish? What do people want? What do people not like about the other games? This will help you set a foundation as you develop a game to develop a marketable game. You'll also want to develop a marketing plan alongside development. Do not save it until the end. That is the path to heartbreak and ruin and probably not making a ton of money, unless your game is so spectacular. So you want to outline key milestones, target audience profiles, and promotional strategies, because that's also going to help you build those gates in your production schedule for when those trailer capture tools have to be available. And then finally, share. People love to see works in progresses because we all as people are works in progress. That sounds super corny and new age, but seriously, it does actually resonate with people. So share your development updates, do developer diaries, right? It helps other people who are interested in game development. And you can also share things like concept art and behind the scenes content with your audience. At Gearbox, I'm not specifically involved with this project, but for Risk of Rain Returns, we've done a lot of developer diaries and people really respond well to them. It makes them feel like a part of the game before they even get their hands on the game. So, any questions about when marketing actually starts? And it's okay if the answer is no. I won't do the Jeopardy thing to stress you guys out. Yes. For that, Twitter, I refuse to call it X, sorry, Elon. Twitter is often pretty good for that, but you're also primarily going to be advertising to other game developers. TikTok is huge. You will probably need to learn the very basics of TikTok. I don't like using TikTok. It scares me. I'm too old for it. I can't keep up. But generally speaking, there's a lot of discoverability on there, and they actually have a vertical where you as game developers, they'll highlight TikToks from that. So that's a really, really great avenue. Instagram can be good because there's not a lot of game devs on there. But again, I think TikTok is probably the primary place for discoverability for early stages. Yes.
So you have a really strong personality. I don't think that that's a hallmark of a lot of people who make video games. How do those people navigate it? If they're not used to human interaction.
Very fair question. Okay, so you do not have to be the face of your game. The great thing about TikTok and a lot of other platforms is that they have voice to text, right? There is an element of you want to show some personality, but your game is probably going to be the source of a lot of that personality. If it's not marketable. You need a hook for things, right? So don't feel like you have to be the face of your game, and know that social media requires a lot of testing. So it might not be perfect the first time, but the more used to putting yourself out there that you are, the easier it's going to get. And if it's not successful, the algorithm will probably find another post of yours that will become more successful. So something to kind of keep in mind as you start to promote early on, your games. I'm going to, one more, and then we'll go to the next section.
So you're talking about promoting and marketing your games, but as a lot of the folks here are looking to break into industry, they could also be promoting their skills, their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of their own viability in the market to get jobs. So I think a lot of this is relevant
for sure.
LinkedIn's, resumes, impact statements.
The best thing I ever did for my career was doing a personal SWOT analysis, where you basically position yourself against all the other people looking for jobs and what you want to do. It helped me figure out what I like, what I'm good at, and the things that I'm good at that I don't like. So great point. Absolutely. You can apply this to yourself or your game. A lot of gaming is just selling yourself. So myth number 2, platforms only support and feature AAA games. Well, I'm going to go on this myth.
I'm to answer that question myself, but
the answer is no. No, they do not. It is much harder. And yes, typically the big guns will promote their own games, or they will reach out to large games to promote them. But the truth is that platforms love to support smaller games, but you have to be proactive. They will not find you. You have to go to them and demand their attention. Politely demand their attention, please. New games and studios do have to be more proactive than established games and studios to be featured, but the platforms have these things called account managers, and their literal job is to take the games that they are account managers for and find those promotional opportunities for you. It might not always align, right? But their goal is to find those opportunities and help you succeed, because if your game sells a bunch, it helps them look good to their bosses. Most major platforms have those account managers, and they'll connect you with those promotions like platform banners, special sales, showcases, and other placements. And Xbox and PlayStation are both awesome for support. They have the blog and they have social media support where they will either retweet or natively post about your game. They both welcome pitches for both of those platforms. And I know DC Universe Online is not exactly an indie game, but it is a much older game. And we were still getting blog features if we provided them blog posts that helped their audiences. So those cheat codes. First, become besties with your account manager. They are your number one champion with those platforms. And if you don't have one when you're at a certain stage of development, which is typically when you're starting to build store pages on those platforms, reach out to them. There is usually a developer help contact point, then they can help connect you with those account managers. Please do not LinkedIn stalk people who say that they're account managers for those platforms. Go directly through the platforms. Also, submit pitches through the proper channels. PlayStation will not publish a blog if you email them. They will not. They have a form for that. They are too big to read every single email from every single developer who wants to have a pitch. And their forms have things like dates. They have assets that you expect to put in. Use the forms. That is the way that you will get support. Follow the forms, fill them out, know the numerical backend values for your game that they're going to require for those. And it's going to expedite the process for everybody involved. And then finally, pitch content that's valuable for the platform, not just for you. If you have a press release, it is not going on either of those blogs. Press releases are great for a lot of folks, but the blogs really want things that give insight into the game development process, particularly PlayStation. They love it when they can get developer interviews where you can go in depth in sound or how you built a system, right? People like to learn about how games are made, even if they don't fully understand it. I love to learn about how games are made, even though I don't fully understand it. It's literally my entire job. So, any questions about platforms?
Or like a clarifying question. So, by platform manager, this is someone like who would work at Sony, not someone on your team.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So when I mention account managers, that is somebody at PlayStation, Xbox, or Switch. I will say in my experience, and it's been a minute since I've worked with account managers now that I'm more specialized, PlayStation and Xbox are more proactive as account managers. Nintendo Switch knows how great their platform is, and they will come to you. You don't necessarily go to them.
What's your experience? I know that PC is a very different realm than consoles. Do you have I don't know which sort of storefronts you work
like
with.
Steam and Epic.
Yeah. Do they have account managers? Do they have some sort of similar system? How does that?
I know that Steam does. I think that Epic does. And Steam account managers are actually the way that you'll get things like those, certain publisher sales that might get featuring, or those micro store sites that are built on Steam for some of those sales. Day of the Devs is a great example of one. So yeah, they are another account manager that you should be besties for sure.
What about promoting on somewhere like Itch or like another smaller platform? How does that compare to, the cost of the bigger like PC platforms?
I will be totally honest with you. I know very little about Itch, but I do know that they also have featured slots and banners. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So reach out to any developer help resources that they might have, and you could possibly secure that featuring. I wish I knew more about Itch. It's such an excellent platform. Cool. We'll move on to the next myth because there will still be time for questions at the end. So myth number 3. Other developers are just competition. I think we've all seen the stats of how many goddamn games get released on every single platform every single day. It is scary, but it should not be, because other devs can actually help you level up your marketing. I think one of the biggest and splashiest examples is the indie Cosmicube that Among Us recently released, where they worked with, I think, 7 other indie games, created cosmetics within Among Us, and made a big old hoopla about it. It got major press attention from outlets like Kotaku. And some of these games in the indie Cosmicube are not super recent, right? It had the added benefit of not only getting press attention for every single one of the games involved, but it also introduced all of these games to Among Us players who may not have been the initial target audience. I know people say Among Us is a dead game, but they have a lot of freaking players. They have a lot. And that's a great opportunity to get notified of them. And then Peglin is one of my favorite examples. They are a much smaller dev than Among Us. And Peglin is one of my favorite games. It is a Peggle meets roguelike game where you're a cute little goblin and you shoot balls on a pachinko board and you defeat enemies by doing so. They released their game at around the same time as Roundguard did, which is a Peggle-like roguelike game where you shoot balls down a pachinko board and you defeat enemies with that. The Peglin dev actually posted about it on Twitter, and the Roundguard dev reached out. They created a bundle for physics-based roguelike games that look a lot like what Peggle used to look like. And in doing so, Peglin actually earned an extra $150,000 just from that bundle. Now, I don't know about you, but I really like the idea of $150,000 extra dollars for just about anything that I do. And if you're curious about more of that and would like to see the source, howtomarketagame.com, fantastic resource in general, but they did an article about this, so you know I'm not just making this number up. But bundling, they came together with a game that could have easily just been competition, and they created an opportunity for everybody to save and everybody to benefit. So cheat codes. You have to reach out to developers who complement yours. Well, you don't have to, but I recommend it. There are a lot of potential collaboration opportunities, and the worst thing that they can say is no. No is not the worst thing that you will hear as a game developer. I pinky promise you that. Reviewers can be mean sometimes. And don't say no to yourself before somebody else has a chance to. You can also explore joint marketing initiatives like social media campaigns and engagement. I know we're all a little tired of companies pretending to be people on Twitter, but seriously, what Wendy's does on Twitter gets a lot of attention, where you comment on each other's posts and you get into a fake flame war or whatever. Maybe don't do the flame war, but seriously, engage as your game with other games, and they're likely to return the favor. If you're nice, please be nice on social media game. You can do co-streaming events, right? There are opportunities potentially for you guys to stream together on Twitch so that you're amplifying to each other's audiences. Email newsletter featuring is huge on Kickstarter, especially. There are a lot of games that will do updates that include links to other Kickstarters that they are fans of. That is huge for a lot of those games, and it is a great way to build a community, because at the end of the day, game dev is a community, not just competition. Defeat the myth. And then bundle promotion. Again, $150,000. I'm not guaranteeing you that you will earn that much, but, extra money is good money. And it gives you an opportunity to appeal to folks who only ever buy games on discount, even outside of major Steam sales. And then work with your fellow game devs to pitch theme sales or events to platforms like Day of the Devs, right? It is harder to get on Steam's calendar than it used to be back in 2016. It was a surefire way to get to the front of the Steam page. Not guaranteeing that, but again, ask. Find ways, because if Steam likes it, they're likely to amplify the featuring. Any questions about cooperation, not competition? Yes.
What are the random aspects to pitch other devs to platforms for events, stuff like that? How would one go about?
First, I would recommend contacting the other developers that you think would be a good fit. If Steam already knows that the other developers have buy-in, they're more likely to pay attention to what you have. And if you go as a united front saying, hey, this is a thing we'd all like to do, it helps lend credence to your event. And then go to your account managers. Again, be besties with your account managers. They are wonderful, wonderful people. Yes.
Sort of tangentially related, so how do you I know that some storefronts like Epic, as a way to promote their store, occasionally do free games, offer free games. How does that system work? How do you get compensated by the storefront for doing a deal like that? How does that work?
So I will fully admit, that's more of a business development tool that usually happens. I don't have a ton of visibility into it. I mostly just know that you get the emails if people say they want to opt into your newsletter. That's mostly what my job is focused on. So unfortunately, I don't have a really good answer for you. But again, your account manager probably does. Perfect. I'm going to go on to the next myth then. Myth number 4, the bigger the streamer, the bigger the success. I really like watching Markiplier. I think he's a fun guy to watch. And I think a lot of game devs would probably die and assume that their game is going to immediately be successful if they can get somebody who has that level of viewership to stream their game. I'm pretty sure everybody has their dream multi-million influencers. But smaller streamers actually have a little bit more influence over their audiences, and they're in valuable niches, especially for folks who are developing indie games, right? You want to capitalize on your niche and find the exact right audience for your game. So smaller influencers have really, really high engagement. They actually generate 60% more engagement than macro and mega influencers. Engagement, also, I want to be very clear, is separate from impressions. Views are impressions. People going to your store page and wish listing or buying is engagement. Especially for smaller games, you're probably going to want to tunnel in on that engagement factor. Smaller influencers are also great for stretching your budget and are a lot more likely to do free promotion of a game than the bigger influencers. So if you have no marketing budget, smaller influencers are more likely to play your game. And if you have a little budget, you can actually stretch it and reach different audiences that might be slightly different niches, but still within your umbrella. And this is a little factor I like to call matchy-matchy. Viewership is just one piece of the puzzle. You have to make sure your game aligns with what a streamer's audience expects. Markiplier mostly plays a lot of horror games, right? If you're not a horror game and you are more of a cutesy pixel management sim, his audience is probably going to be like, not for me. Exactly. So cheat codes. First of all, use other games to your benefit. Research games similar to yours to identify key streaming targets. You know that those people already wanted to play those games. And really look for their smaller streamers. Don't just go with the first videos that YouTube recommends. Scroll a little bit. YouTube is also not great for this research, so I highly recommend checking out this website called Sullynome. Sullynome has statistics for basically any game that's on Twitch, any streamer that's on Twitch. They scrape the data and they put it into charts that I like a lot better than going in through the Twitch backend, if I'm being honest. You can use that to see what games and genres perform best for target streamers, and you can see if somebody gets a viewership dip during games that are similar to yours. If you see that, they're probably not a great streamer for you, even if they've played a game similar to yours in the past. And again, I know you guys are students. You probably don't have like a huge influencer budget, but if you are paying for streamers, please make sure that their social and streaming metrics are actually relevant to your campaign goals. High viewership does not equal high engagement. And this really goes for any marketing campaign, if I'm being honest. I think the second biggest mistake I see indie games make is that they have these campaigns and they're like, great, we're going to do Google Ads, we're going to do YouTube. And they don't actually have a success metric, or the platforms and channels that they're using don't actually align to the metric that's most important. Again, views are one KPI, and you might want that earlier in your campaign. But as you get closer to releasing and after releasing, you're probably going to want to optimize those campaigns towards engagements, clicks, site visits, wish lists, those sort of things. I feel like David has pumpkins, guys. Any questions? Thank you. I got one. Yes.
So I didn't know about Peglin and I didn't know about Sullynome. Are there things that you did say research other games that are like the game you're making? What do you use to do that? And is there any easy way to do that, or is it just brute forcing to find out about everything?
I will say it is a lot of brute forcing. Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation can make it difficult for you to do competitive research sometimes. So it is a lot of going through things like Steam tags manually and seeing what games are similar to yours. Even if a game is not just on Steam, you can use that as a starting point just to get an idea, because most of those will probably be multi-platform. Again, searching on YouTube, searching on Sullynome, those are some good ways to kind of see that. And if you actually start with streamers that you think would like the game, you can see the other games that they've played and use that as a gateway to kind of continue and do this Daisy chain's not quite the right word, but it's the one that's coming to my brain of research. So those are the starting avenues that I would recommend. Does that clarify a little bit? Perfect.
How do you feel about using websites like Keymailer that lets you give keys to figures?
I think it can be valuable for sure. I think they have a newsletter where they'll share it out and they'll push it out towards people. So especially if you don't have a ton of connections to start off with, it can be a good place to start. It is also safer. Sometimes there will be a lot of people who will email you and be like, hello, I am Streamer McGee. And it's some big name streamer that you've heard of. And they're like, I would like one key, but they spell key Keih. And you're like, you're not that streamer. You're totally being a faker. And Keymailer does have authentication factors. So I'm talking about influencers. It's not my primary job. It's just a job I helped with at Aspire. But I do think it's a good starting point for influencers for sure. So it depends. A lot of times it is manually collecting it in a spreadsheet. Remember how I started this off saying you should all become best friends with your spreadsheets? That's primarily why. It's a lot of going into backends on things like Steam and looking at the reports, copy pasting it and getting it into your platform. Pretty much any marketing tool that you use will have an on-platform analytics suite. Some of them are a lot better than others, but it'll give you a starting point. You will likely have to manually collect it. There is software to kind of help bring everything together, but that is typically very, very expensive. So a lot of reporting collation is manual, but I highly recommend setting your campaign goals early on in a spreadsheet and building out that structure beforehand and then filling stuff in as you go. Cool. Myth number 5. I take this one personally because this is 95% of my job. People claim that email is dead. How many of you guys have opened an email in the last 24 hours? It's not dead. Plural of anecdote is not data, but the truth is that email is actually a very valuable way to reach out to an engaged audience because there's a little thing called opting in that you have to do. The truth is really that bad emails are dead. Irrelevant messaging, oversending, and tricking people into subscribing using dark UX patterns are why people think email is dead, or at least why they hate email. The great thing about email is that there are no algorithms, with a caveat. There are automated spam filters. You do not want to get caught by those. But the good news is that unlike algorithms, there are very strict guidelines that every email provider puts out that tell you what keeps your email from being marked as spam. It's not the black box of Instagram where it's like, well, if you post at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, there's not a lot of competition and they'll push it, but you're posting at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, right? A lot less guesswork. And you have a lot of control over when what you send hits people's inboxes. And you get a lot of eyes on your messages. Again, we had a nearly 100% open rate for at least one or more emails, but for individual emails, most marketers report an average email open rate of 46 to 50%. It's huge. It's awesome. I recommend email marketing for a lot of game developers. First thing that you're going to want to do is, well, one, make sure that you're in a place where you can support email marketing, and then implement a clear opt-in process and preference center to help you send customers actually relevant emails. I think one of the things that I typically see as different, this is a little bit of a tangent, not necessarily related to this bullet point. A lot of people are like, great, I want an owned audience. I'll have people all come to my Discord, which is great, except there's an expectation of immediate responses from the game developers in Discord. If you want to have a communications channel where it's not expected that you personally respond to people as they receive it, email marketing is a great, great way to do that. The next cheat code is, if you are doing email marketing, provide value to subscribers. I think most of us hate emails that just want us to buy things. I think that's a pretty safe thing to say. So give them things like exclusive content, in-game rewards, beta invites, game demos, and more. Soundtracks are an option, right? Computer wallpapers. I know it sounds cheesy, but people just like free stuff, okay? And if you give away free stuff, it can help you get birthdays, which help you avoid getting fined by the ESRB if you are doing an M-rated game. So that's also something that's very important, especially for my job. And if you doubt any of that, we have a lot of email signups for Shift because we give away codes for free stuff in Borderlands, a game that people tend to like, right? It doesn't have to be huge. It can be cosmetics. It can be in-game currency, but people having a lead magnet makes people feel more invested in your email marketing. And then you can use other channels like social media and your website to drive newsletter signups. I'm sure that a lot of people are like, I don't ever sign up for emails on websites. You are not the majority. We actually get a ton of email signups on websites as long as we are clear about what is on offer and what they can expect from the emails. So as you build this marketing channel that doesn't require immediate responses from you guys, those are great ways to start building that up. So any questions about email marketing? My favorite part.
So you mentioned like providing like goodies as part of email service. Like, how do you like convince like the rest of the developer team who may be like busy working on a specific feature, or even the whole game trying to ship it? How do you convince them to say, okay, could you like make a nice little feature and share it with me so I can send it out on this email marketing system?
So that ties back into myth number one. When you build that marketing calendar, you'll want to build this stuff in, that marketing calendar that goes along with that production timeline, so there's no surprises. If you're already far enough in development, I don't recommend scope creep. I think scope creep is a very dangerous thing, and a lot of times marketing stuff does unfortunately end up as scope creep. But what you can do is you can do things like developer interviews, dev diaries, and stuff that you can already be sharing on social media. You can even take social media posts and literally collect them in one place in an email. That's a thing that people have done, and there are tools that help you kind of pull in that email marketing or that social feed into your email marketing. So think of ways to repurpose content that already exists if you're on kind of a hamstrung time or money budget.
Newsletters.
It depends on the game, which is such a cop-out answer, I know. One, it should be as much as you and your dev team can support in a high quality manner. So if you don't have time to QA your emails, you don't have time to send an email. Typically, in terms of making sure that you stay on top of your deliverability metrics, which is making sure that you're not flagged as spam, I try to send one email a month at least so that our email domain stays active and Google's not like, you haven't emailed anybody for 6 months and you're sending a million emails, spam. You want to avoid triggering that. But generally speaking, if you do email, just make sure that you're building it in with time to support it. And when you have something important to say, don't just say stuff to say it and to send it, right? Because again, it's all about providing value. People have given you something really important to them, which is their email. Respect their inbox and give them stuff they actually care about. And that's the hardest part of email marketing, by the way. That's why they hired me at Gearbox Publishing.
What tools are there to support?
MailChimp is a great platform, especially as you're starting out. They have a free option, and then you can scale up as your game subscribers scale up. But it's a great platform because it has a ton of support for people to learn email marketing and email coding, and they do a lot of the hard work of making sure that like your email footer is canned spam, which is a piece of legislation that kind of dictates what is and isn't spam. Like it keeps you compliant with that. And they also have account managers once you get big enough. So again, full circle, we always come back to those account managers. So MailChimp is great. There are other ones, but for beginners and smaller studios, I really do recommend MailChimp. All right, we've gotten through our 5 minutes and we still have 20-ish minutes. So I wanted to open up the floor for you guys to ask me almost anything. It can be job related. It can be game development related. It can be marketing related. My goal here is to be a valuable resource to y'all. Yes.
Now back to when you were a student here at UT, were you involved with EGAT?
EGATS did not exist when I was a student at UT, or if it did, I did not know. I am really, really excited to see that it does exist. I actually, in college, I had no idea that I wanted to get into game development because a lot of people don't tell you that there are marketing departments at game studios, right? You just assume you have to be building the games in order to contribute to a game's development. So I was like, great, I'm going to work at an advertising agency. I'm going to go to Chicago or New York or something like that. And I'm going to do, I don't know, like sports beverage accounts. I found out that an internship that I had did not qualify for the internship class I was required to take, and I panicked and I scrambled and I reached out on LinkedIn and ended up getting that internship at DC Universe Online. It is one of those things that is proof positive that networking works as long as you do it responsibly and you let somebody else come to you when you post in a panic about how much you need a job, right? But that was my foot in the door, and I absolutely fell in love with the gaming industry from that point on. Now I'm lucky to have the kind of job that lets me work in basically any industry, but I'm like way luckier to work in the game development industry where you can share cool stuff and amplify art. Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, we all want to make money, but we also want to make games that go beyond that and are seen as art. Yes.
I'm curious, like you're in a very like community-centric role, like sending out emails, sharing content. Have you ever like gone to any conferences or interacted with fans in like in that sort of setting? Like,
I have not. Unfortunately, by the time I was trusted to go to conferences, a little thing called COVID-19 hit. Yeah, not great. So unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to go and interface directly with fans per se. And what I do is more under that marketing umbrella. Again, you might not guess this from the way that I've approached this presentation. I don't necessarily like talking to people on the internet. I just like being in their inbox, right? I actually, one of the jobs that I had in the past had to do a lot of social media. It was part of the reason why I was open to new opportunities, because people online are awful. Oh my God, they suck, right? So I would love to be more involved with the actual fans of things beyond just sending them messages. But again, thanks, COVID-19, you ruined the party. Yes.
How big would you say the marketing teams are for development games?
The marketing teams are typically a lot smaller. I'm very lucky to be on a team that even has a specialization like mine. Usually CRM is something that a brand manager will have as a suite of about 30 things that they do. Typically speaking, because it is easier for folks to do multiple marketing disciplines all at once rather than having a programmer do art, for example, that's usually why marketing teams are smaller. And to be real about the situation in gaming, right? Marketing and community are often the things that get cut first in layoffs because, well, we're making a game and we need the game and we can figure out marketing later, right? Common misconception. I did say everybody was a marketer and I think y'all can do marketing. But once you start getting into like that AAA space, right? There's the assumption that, oh, we'll just figure it out and throw people in. And it's really unfortunate. And I think it bites a lot of companies in the ass, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Sorry if this is really important, but what if there's something like just the price that have happened that caused a lot of difficulty in the marketing? Do you have like a response to that? For example, I know a game called Outer Wild that came out at the same time where with the Obsidian World RPG, and it caused a lot of loss of potential that game. So what would you do in that situation?
That's a great question, actually, because we had a game called Light Matter launch at the same small indie game, really awesome indie game, but a small indie game called Light Matter launch at the same time as, oh my God, it was Cyberpunk. Yeah. So like we've been there. And the way that we've sort of dealt with it is one, taking a breath and not panicking first and foremost, because when you panic, you start to post stupid stuff and you start to, get squirrely. The second thing was we tried to differentiate on content. The people who were playing Cyberpunk probably weren't playing a physics light-based puzzler. So finding ways to really lean into that niche and making sure that the streamers that we were talking to were really invested in that niche and wouldn't necessarily even be interested in playing Cyberpunk on launch. That was huge for us. And then generally remembering that for a lot of smaller games, your best sales spike ever will not be on launch. It will probably be the first time that you discount your game as part of a big Steam sale. It's unfortunate, but hey, money's tight. I get it, So that's kind of generally how we would approach it. But I will also say I did read an article on how to market a game. Fantastic resource. Everybody should read it. where a game called Mega Aquarium released alongside another huge game and actually was at the top of the purchasing charts because it was so different from the big game, right? I think with Outer Wilds and the game that came out with it, they were very similar in scope, size, RPG-ishness, all that good stuff. That it makes it more difficult, but especially for smaller games, I feel like Douglas Adams here. Don't panic. You're probably not going to get those people anyway. Cyberpunk is the thing that's going to steal away from your game. Yeah.
For smaller games, right? The goal is that we have still market the game in the most developing game. Someone who gets into that marketing field, I know you mentioned a lot about people marketing as a starting base, but there's other places that you think are good places to start and learn marketing for those small games.
I think the reason why I say email marketing is a great place to start is because it gets you in the practice of content writing, of creating graphics that have to be a certain specification. Otherwise, it'll take forever for the email to load and you'll get marked as spam, right? Social media is also, as long as you are cautious, can also be a great way to learn and test, especially because their analytics backends tend to be very robust. And then as you start to move towards paid marketing, the Google Ads certification, I think everybody could benefit from it, if only to understand why you're getting shown stuff that doesn't make any sense to you. You're like, I searched for World of Warcraft. Why am I being shown an ad for World of Tanks, right? The answer is they bid it on competitive keywords, and you'll learn stuff like that through those. I also think that HubSpot has a great general marketing certification. It's not game specific, but it gives you those principles and the content approach that can help you be successful in just about any market. Again, I vouch, I think marketing is a special skill, but I also think it's one that everybody can learn if they put in the time. It's not natural to everybody, but you can make it second nature.
This might be not your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to putting games on sale, like how do you determine when to go on sale, how much to go on sale, and if you just rely on the platform to promote the sale, like with the wishes system.
Mm-hmm.
Or you just do your own the downside of the game.
I always recommend supporting marketing with the sale. And my specific email strategy for that is don't send it on the day that the sale goes live, because Steam is going to send a wish list email. Send it like 2 days afterwards to remind people that the sale is still going. As for setting a game on sale, I'm going to like go back a little further than that even. Price your game appropriately so that when you put it for 50% off, you're still making a profit. A lot of game devs think that, oh my God, if I make it as cheap as possible, I have great room and everybody will buy it. But that can often be a sign that the game might be low quality or that you don't believe in the game. Whereas people love, it is a consumer psychology thing. People like to feel like they're getting a deal. So set your game, appropriately. Some games really should be priced at $10, but you might, if it's an 8-hour experience, maybe should be priced at $20. And then you do a launch discount that's 25% off. And then all of a sudden you're combining that consumer psychology and the discount percentages and remaining profitable in the approach. The percentages will vary. Typically, you don't want your best ever sale to be your first ever sale. Don't do a launch discount of 75% because then people will only buy your game at 75% off, right? So start small and slowly increment your discounts. That's probably the best piece of advice. I totally stole that from howtomarketagame.com. I have to give credit. I'm not just a marketing genius on my own. But that's generally the approach I would take to those sales.
I guess are there like How to Market a Game and like Selena, are there any other publications, magazines, anything that you trust as like a resource for, having those techniques to kind of help like push your content?
Game Discover Co. is a newsletter on Substack. They go more into how things are discovered on the platforms. It's not necessarily only marketing related, but discoverability is inherently a little bit marketing related. That one is a great resource for understanding the games market and how to make the most of it. This is just general if you're learning email marketing. Again, this is my wheelhouse. It's where I spend like 80% of my day. Litmus and Really Good Emails. They both have great newsletters that I highly recommend. And those are the primary ones that I always go back to and I can think of off the top of my head. But they do a great job of building a roadmap. And also, gamesindustry.biz does have articles that are designed to teach, not just share news about the games industry. And I found that those can be really valuable, especially if you're just starting out. Yes.
Do you have any perspective or opinions about third-party marketing agencies? Obviously, you work for Gearbox, Borderlands to Mr. Brain, but for people that are doing things on their own scope, I'm mainly thinking about not just people that don't have a strong personality, but
Yeah.
game developers, and they only got so many spoons in the drawer.
For sure.
And they probably, their time is at a premium, they probably ought to be working on the game. So if there's someone else that they could trust, that like, please take care of my baby while I go take a nap.
Yeah, because you're burnt out. Yeah.
Do you even know like which ones are any good, and is there anything to worry about? How do you tell whether or not they're going to, be worth the money for the time?
I think I've worked with a lot of amazing agencies. They have saved my butt in many scenarios, especially even just with resizing assets. Photoshop is not always my best friend. I have had the opportunity to work very directly with Petrol. I really, really like them. But again, that is on larger campaigns. What I would recommend for smaller games is don't necessarily feel like you have to go to an agency to get help. There are a ton of freelancers who are working in the indie space or who may have, I don't know, recently been laid off and need some income and might be willing to take on some projects for, making sure that they still have money to feed themselves, right? So there's a scale and a spectrum. You have big agencies like Petrol, that's usually for your like $30,000 campaigns, and that is inclusive of what you pay them to produce that stuff, right? So you're actually getting a little less than $30,000 worth of ad spend because they've got to pay their staff. There are also smaller agencies. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but that are just kind of, maybe more general focused, but can help clear up some of those avenues and work the tech back end that you might not have time to. And then, like I said, freelancers, great resource. Even if you just need basic game advisement, or you're like, hey, can you just write me a marketing campaign that we can act on? They'll do that for you. Ooh, yeah, we'll do you and then you.
What are some of the metrics that you use to find out if your marketing expenses are justified and actually resulted in sales to offset that cost?
Yeah, that is the single hardest part of being a game dev marketer, because Xbox and PlayStation and Steam only give you about half of the data you need to determine whether it was your marketing that got people there or not. So typically, the funnel that I like to use as a basis is site traffic to button clicks. And then you look at the percentage of traffic that came from off-site on those analytics platforms. And you're like, okay, well, if 30% of my site traffic was from this, we can estimate, and always use the word estimate. Always, always, always. Cover your ass. That's like my biggest advice. We can estimate that, 30% of sales might have come from there. And so then you use that to kind of do some of the math. If you don't have if you do direct ad buys on Xbox, for example, they will actually tell you like one for one, like, here's how much you earned from this campaign. But for more self-service options like social media, email marketing, and even some paid search ads and social marketing, that's how I would recommend approaching it to make sure that your campaigns are actually having a return on investment. And you also want to use UTMs on all of your links. It's what makes the links super long, but it actually tells marketing people, hey, this person came from Facebook, Twitter, email, whatever. So that can also help you attribute things, especially for store traffic. Yeah. Also, caveat there, Steam only counts UTMs from people who are logged in. So whenever you look at your Steam traffic, don't panic. You can kind of do some math to see how many people clicked from, say, your emails, but it's probably not going to match what's in Steam. It's great for user privacy. It's bad for marketers. That is the eternal pendulum that we swing of like, we want to give you personalized stuff. We also don't want to be creepy weirdos. You had a question?
Yeah, unless anyone else had it.
No, I think we have like 5 minutes left, so you're good.
Okay.
I know I talk a lot, but.
I didn't want to ask the second question. Yeah, anyways, so you mentioned that you studied advertising or marketing something similar at UT. How is that different? How is like marketing as you learned it in theory different from how you're using those skills now as in industry?
I was very fortunate to get a certificate in media planning, which is something you have to apply for at the Media College of Communications. I learned a lot of my spreadsheet skills there, so that's been very helpful. But media planning is pretty similar in the sense that it's figuring out budgets, figuring out where you're putting the ads. I think advertising in general is often very focused on what's the most insane creative that we can put out there, but that doesn't always drive results. I think a lot of ad awards specifically, there are amazing campaigns that like are truly art, but maybe you don't actually get sales or like you can't remember what brand it is, right? And I think that's been the biggest disconnect from school versus where I'm at right now is it is very much, we have a metric, we have to hit it. You see it in action because everything is very theoretical, especially, we were working with real world clients, but we didn't actually implement the campaigns. So going from here's the idea for the campaign and here's how it actually panned out, that's also been, that was also the biggest difference for me is that final stage of the loop where you then use that to inform the next campaign. And if you're not doing that, please do. Please do. Always look at campaign reports and use the learnings from that so you don't keep making expensive mistakes because marketing mistakes can be very expensive. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned you worked with a number of platforms. Are there any like key differences you found between them, like PlayStation, Xbox?
PlayStation is more regimented, I would say. They are a Japanese company, and so a lot of their processes and workflows reflect what's common there. I think Xbox being an American company, like my account manager was, I submitted blog pitches to him, right? There wasn't necessarily a forum to keep everything separate. Nintendo Switch, this is not me disparaging the platform whatsoever, but they know what they want. They understand that they are kind of the only ones doing what they do. And so they will tell you what they want rather than letting you go up to them, basically. Steam and Epic, they're both really open to working with developers, which I really, really love. Their goal is to amplify a lot of different games at a lot of different, spots. But there are no paid like placements on there. And that's the big difference from Xbox, PlayStation, right? Like you can literally buy ads on the platform that are ads on Xbox and PlayStation. You can't do that on Steam. It really is a little bit more of a democratic process. And plug for how to market a game. They do a great job demystifying what shows up where and why on Steam. So again, if you like what you hear here, go to howtomarketagame.com. Seriously. Does that answer your question? I kind of repeated myself a little bit. Sorry. Yeah.
What is your regular day in game market?
So for me, in my current role, it's going to look a lot different than other people because I'm able to specialize a little bit more. So typically what happens is I have a list of emails that are planned. Our brand managers will send those to me and they will also send me the copy for it. I will make tweaks and edits to that copy, and then I will build out the emails. Once I've built out the emails, I get approvals from the brand team, and then I go in and I segment our audiences. I will use SQL code to go in and pull people who have played a certain game in our system or who signed up from a certain source or who have or haven't interacted with our emails prior to build send lists and then exclusion lists. Those are very, very important because again, like send volume is great, but if you're sending to people who never open a single email, you might get marked as spam. So a lot of what I do is trying to figure out how to be as unspammy as possible in that process. And then I will take a look at any emails that we've sent prior and build out reports in Confluence. We do use Confluence and Jira even on the marketing team. So I highly recommend building those skills and those disciplines. And then use that and create reports, share them with the brand managers, and kind of just do the whole thing over again. I'll also meet with our data team to make sure that we are ingesting data properly, that we are sending unsubscribes from our email marketing database to our Shift database, right? Like we want to make sure that we're fully communicating between any separate databases or sign-up sources that we may have. I'll also work with web teams to set up those little email signups on the bottom of websites that people do sign up for. Seriously, I'm not making this up, guys. So it's a little bit of tech, a little bit of creativity, and then a lot of analysis. Spreadsheets, gang. And I think that's all the time I have. And I think that's a pretty good note to end it on. So thank you guys so much. If you guys have any other questions, please add me on LinkedIn and I will help with resume reviews. I will help with mock interviews. I want to help people get where they want to be in the games industry and also just kind of give advice. Like I said at the beginning, I like to hear my own voice. So let me talk to you.